Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on a critical home safety system that most of us never ever see. We're going to follow a real world story to understand not just how electrical grounding gets installed, but why it might be one of the most important things in your entire house.
All right, so let's dive right in. Meet Mrs. Amati. She's got this beautiful, brand new house all ready to go, but there's one last problem. The power company won't turn on her electricity until they get official proof that her home is safely connected to the earth. So here's how we're going to break it down. We'll follow her entire journey, right from figuring out the problem to the actual hands-on installation, a surprise twist from the inspector, and finally, the one test that decides if she gets to turn her lights on.
Okay, so what's the actual challenge Mrs. Amati is up against here? Let's get into the specifics.
Well, her situation is actually super common. It's a regular two-story house. And the good news? She has damp, clay-like soil. Now, you might not think about dirt very often, but that kind of soil is fantastic at conducting electricity, which is exactly what we need. The real trick is finding a solution that's affordable, but also good enough to pass a very strict safety inspection.
And you know what? It all boils down to this one number, 2 ohms. An ohm is just a way to measure electrical resistance. You can kind of think of it like friction for electricity. And to pass that inspection, the whole system has to have a resistance of less than 2 ohms. That is the magic number. It's the target they absolutely have to hit.
So, how in the world do they hit that target? Well, because she has that great soil and a limited budget, the solution is actually refreshingly simple and really effective. Yeah, that's it. No need for a giant, complicated system. Because her soil is so conductive, all they need is one single 3-meter-long copper-coated steel rod. They're just going to drive it straight down into the ground. It's efficient, it's cheap, and it's more than enough to get the job done right. And the installation itself? It's a pretty straightforward 4-step process. First, they dig a small pit, just to get started. Second, they hammer that long rod deep into the earth. Third, and this is a neat trick, they pour in a special conductive clay mixture called a bentonite slurry. This stuff fills in all the tiny gaps and makes a perfect connection between the rod and the soil. And finally, they just pop a cover on top so they can get to it later if they need to.
Okay, but a metal rod in the dirt is, well, just a metal rod in the dirt. What turns it into a life-saving system is how it connects to the rest of the house. And this is where the details really matter.
You see, you've got two main ways to attach the main ground wire to that rod. The quick and easy way is with a simple clamp. It's cheap, but here's the problem. It's buried underground, where it's going to rust and corrode and eventually fail. The right way, the engineering way, is something called a Cadweld. It uses this awesome chemical reaction to literally melt the wire and the rod together, creating one solid piece of metal. It's a permanent molecular bond that will never, ever corrode.
So that main wire, it's called the GEC, by the way. It runs all the way from that welded rod into the house and connects to the main earthing terminal, or MET. Just think of the MET as the central command hub for the entire home's electrical safety system, located right there in the main breaker panel. So the rod is in, the wire's perfectly connected, looks like they're done, right? Not so fast. The inspector shows up, takes a look, and points out a critical safety feature that's often missed. Something that goes way beyond just that rod in the yard. He tells them that real safety isn't just about giving stray electricity one path to the ground. It's about making sure that all the metal things in your house, your pipes, your steel frame, all of it, are connected together. That way, no single piece of metal can become a shock hazard all by itself.
And the way you do that is with a process called equal potential bonding. It sounds complicated, but all it really means is you run extra wires from that central hub, the MET, and you physically connect them to all the big metal systems in the house. The gas pipes, the water pipes, even the steel rebar in the foundation.
And this right here is exactly why it's so important. Just imagine for a second that a hot wire inside a wall accidentally touches your gas pipe. Without bonding, that entire pipe is now electrified and it's a death trap. But with bonding, that dangerous electricity has an instant, safe path back to the MET and out to the ground rod, and it trips the breaker in a fraction of a second. It is, quite literally, a lifesaver.
Okay, with that extra bonding work done, the inspector is finally happy. It's time to connect to the city's power grid. But before they can do that, it's the moment of truth. Time for the final resistance test. Now, to get a true, accurate reading of Mrs. Amati's system, you can't just hook up the meter. First, you have to temporarily disconnect her ground rod from the rest of the city's electrical grid. And you do that with a little component called a test link. The best way to think about it is like a little removable bridge in the circuit.
See, here's why that's so important. If you test it with that bridge connected, your meter is actually reading the combined resistance of her ground rod plus every other ground rod in the entire neighborhood. You get a super low number, but it's totally fake. By opening that little bridge, you isolate her house, forcing the meter to test only her system's performance. It's the only way to get a real honest number.
So after all that work, the deep rod, the special slurry, that permanent weld, the extra safety bonding wires, did it all pay off? Did they hit the target? Was the resistance below 2 ohms?
Yes! The meter comes back with 1.5 ohms. That is well below the 2 ohm limit. It's a pass. The inspector signs off on the paperwork and Mrs. Amati can finally get her power turned on.
All right, that was a lot to cover. So just to make sure it all sticks, let's do a super quick review of the key terms we just learned.
First up, the stuff in the ground. You've got the rod, that's the main copper pole. The slurry is that special conductive mud that ensures a great connection. And the earth pit is just a little manhole cover that lets you get to it. Simple.
Then you've got the connections. The GEC is that main wire running to the panel. The CAD weld is that awesome permanent weld. And the MET is the main hub for everything inside the breaker box. And finally, the big picture stuff. Bonding is what connects all your metal pipes together for safety. The PNE is the main wire coming in from the power company. And the test link is that crucial little bridge that makes sure you get an honest test result. Now, here's the coolest part. By just following this one simple project, you've pretty much grasped the core ideas behind the vast majority of home construction projects. You now get the fundamentals that keep millions of homes safe.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? We've just looked at one invisible system that's working around the clock to keep us safe. It kind of makes you wonder, what other amazing, hidden pieces of engineering are all around us, just quietly doing their job every single day?